The war in the Middle East shows no signs of abating. It is now 2 weeks since it broke out, and hostilities have only intensified, engulfing the entire region. Neither side is in a mood to relent, and the escalation of hostilities has left an impact that's now being felt far and wide.
And we've won. Let me say, we've won. You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. But we won. But they gave me a list of names of generals. Sir, you can pick the name you'd like, sir. I said, the name of what? The name of the attack on Iran, sir. And they gave me like 20 names. And I'm like falling asleep. I didn't like any of them. Then I see Epic Fury. I said, I like that name. I like that name.
תוך זמן קצר חיסלנו את הצורר חמינאי וגם בכירים רבים במשטר הטרור. חיסלנו את הרודן הישן והרודן החדש, מוצ'טבה, הבובה של משמרות המהפכה. הוא אינו יכול להראות את פניו בציבור. אנחנו פועלים לקדם יעד נוסף, ליצור את התנאים עבור העם האיראני כדי שיוכל לסלק את משטר העריצות האכזרי שרודה בו כמעט יובל שנים. אנחנו מנחיתים מכות מחץ על משמרות המהפכה והבסיס, גם ברחובות וגם במחסומים, ועוד היד נטויה. אני אומר לעם האיראני, הרגע שבו תוכלו לצאת לדרך חדשה של חירות, הרגע הזה הולך ומתקרב. אנחנו עומדים לצדכם, אנחנו עוזרים לכם, אבל בסופו של יום זה תלוי בכם. זה בידיים שלכם.
The Straits of Hormuz, caught right in the center of this conflict, is a strategic lifeline for the passage of 20% of global crude oil supplies.
But I'm pleased to report that earlier today, the International Energy Agency agreed to coordinate the release of a record 400 million barrels of oil from various national petroleum reserves around the world, which will substantially reduce the oil prices as we end this threat to America and this threat to the world. We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right?
India imports more than 40% of its crude oil requirement from here. The Straits of Hormuz are also a transit point for more than 40% of our LNG and LPG imports.
I think you have to find an intermediary, first of all, someone who is not part of the problem. My personal preference, if I were advising the president, is to call Prime Minister Modi in India. Now you can say, well, he was just in Israel. Well, that's fine. He has good relations with Israel. That's not a bad thing. He also has good relations with Iran. And I think if President Trump talked to him and said, look, we need to end this. Find a mediator, somebody that they will listen to.
Not just this, more than 60% of our fertilizer imports come from Gulf nations. These Gulf nations also account for about 40% of the global sulfur trade. So right from food security to the livelihood of farmers, to mining, to the manufacture of chips for semiconductors, supply constraints will only leave an adverse impact on the global economy.
He warned that the region in which he was speaking is being pushed to the breaking point, adding that the massive military strike launched by the United States and Israel and the subsequent attacks by Iran on several countries, which were strongly condemned at the Security Council yesterday, constitute a grave threat to international peace and security and have caused an immense suffering for civilians. The Secretary General stressed that de-escalation and dialogue are the only way forward, urging all parties to cease hostilities, uphold international law, protect civilians, and return immediately to the negotiating table.
And what's made it worse is that Iran has been striking energy facilities and infrastructure in the region. It has also spoken of shutting down the Straits of Hormuz.
They are pretty much at the end of the line. Doesn't mean we're going to end it immediately, but they've got no Navy, they've got no Air Force, they've got no anti-air traffic, anything. They have no systems of control. We're just riding free range over that country. And now we're going to look very strongly at the Straits. The Straits are in great shape. We've knocked out all of their boats. They have some missiles, but not very many. I think we're in very good shape.
So perhaps precipitating a global energy crisis is part of the strategy of its retaliation following the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Also, Iran's energy installations have themselves been struck by Israel as well. Do remember that in 2025, the Trump administration had levied penalties on India for purchasing Russian oil. Tariffs were increased to 50% before they were struck down by the American Supreme Court. However, interestingly, now in the middle of this conflict, the Americans have announced a waiver for India to purchase Russian oil for a period of 30 days to keep prices stable. India has not officially responded to this because it never stopped purchasing Russian oil despite American penalties.
In 2022, there was deep nervousness because oil prices went up. There was great nervousness, international nervousness about the price of oil. And there were a set of conversations with different people in the American administration at that time that if India wanted to buy Russian oil, that's fine by us because it will stabilize the price of oil. And by the way, those, after January, there were no conversations with the current administration saying don't do that.
And this never came up in any of the
No.
trade conversations? Never?
No.
Anybody ever asked you?
No, I wasn't doing the trade. But no, it's not. Look, our trade conversations pertain to our bilateral trade. There were no discussions on this issue before their position was made public.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney was in India in the first week of March, and Canada too remains a potential source of supplies of natural gas in the future.
We want to see a broader de-escalation of these hostilities with a broader group of countries than just the direct belligerents involved. We recognize, we stress, that that cannot be achieved unless we're in a position that Iran's ability to acquire a nuclear weapon, develop a nuclear weapon, and to export terrorism is ended. So that process must lead to those outcomes. So one can never categorically rule out participation. We will stand by our allies when it makes sense. There's a distinction between the offensive actions that were taken and are being taken by the United States and Israel, that were taken by them without consultation with Canada, with other allies, and we're not party to those actions. But we will always defend Canadians. We will always stand by and defend our allies when called upon.
However, there's been a raging debate in India over the supply of gas, LPG in particular, and the government issued a notification prioritizing domestic supply to homes. It also warned against hoarding. The opposition has levelled allegations saying that supply constraints when it comes to LPG is a failure of the government's foreign policy, only to be rebutted now by the government.
Is it because of the opposition that half the restaurants, eating joints have been shut out? Is it because of the opposition that the supply chain has been disrupted? Is it because of the opposition that from shipping to mining has been affected? They should go and see the reality across the nation instead of going for this rhetoric.
ये सरकार कभी सही बात नहीं कहती. जब बिल्कुल सर पे आ जाएगी तब कमी नहीं है तो ये एलपीजी के दाम क्यों बढ़ा रहे हैं आप? ये स्थिति बहुत ही खराब है. सरकार की किसी बात पे अब लोगों को भरोसा नहीं है. ये बिल्कुल अविश्वसनीय सरकार हो गई.
प्रधानमंत्री जी, आपको मालूम था ये वेस्ट एशिया में जो युद्ध चल रहा है, फिर भी आपने कुछ मौजूद नहीं किया कि कैसे इसको संभाला जाए. हम लोग देख चुके हैं कि जब नोटबंदी हुआ था तब भी महिलाओं और सारे लोग खड़े थे लाइन पे. आप फिर सर के जो प्रक्रिया चल रहे हैं इसमें भी इतने लोग मारे गए हैं और ये लाइन पे खड़े हुए हैं. अब भी आप ये लाइन पे खड़े कर दिए हैं.
देश भर में शॉर्टेज है, इसके बारे में थोड़ी फोरसाइट अगर होती थी, लेकिन मोदी जी क्या करे, कैंपेन और अलग अलग चीज़ों में बिजी है. चर्चा अगर होती तो शायद इसके ऊपर कोई स्टेप्स लिए जा सकते थे, लेकिन इसमें सरकार को कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है.
This also played out in Parliament as well, with Rahul Gandhi slamming the government and the opposition trying to drown out a statement being made by India's Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri.
As everybody is aware a war has broken out in the Middle East. The United States, Israel, and Iran are at war. This war is going to have far-reaching consequences. The central artery from where 20% of the global oil flows, Strait of Hormuz, has been closed. And this is going to have tremendous repercussions, particularly for us, because a very large portion of our oil and natural gas comes through the Strait of Hormuz. The pain has just started. Restaurants are closing. There's widespread panic about LPG. Street vendors are affected. And as I said, this is only the beginning.
The central government has also been holding inter-ministerial briefings to explain the situation on the ground and warn against any misinformation.
There is no shortage of petrol, diesel, kerosene, ATF or fuel oil. The availability of petrol, diesel, aviation, turbine fuel, kerosene and fuel oil is fully assured. Retail outlets across the country are stocked and supply chains for these products are functioning normally. Honorable Speaker Sahab, this is not the moment for rumor mongering or fake narratives. India is navigating the most severe global energy disruption in recorded history. India must stand united behind the energy warriors, behind the institution managing the crisis, and behind the national interest.
But eateries and restaurants in India have been feeling the pinch.
Restaurants across Kolkata has been facing the same brunt of the increasing gas prices and scarcity of it. At this point, I'm standing in the kitchen of Shiraz Golden Restaurant, which is famous for its Mughlai cuisines, especially for biryani and chap. This kitchen functions at least 24/7 with all the burners flaming high to serve the demands of the city. But at this point, when the gas price has hiked and the scarcity of it has been noticed, you see that most of the burners are not let into fume. And this is raising concern across the city. We'll have a word with the owner and get to understand how are they keeping up with the demands of the city that is facing at this moment, especially the food industry is facing.
The West Asia war has entered day 13, and with that we're seeing disruptions in the supply of LPG as far as commercial cylinders are also concerned. In fact, currently I'm at Sector 15 in Noida, a commercial hub which generally at this hour is steaming with in fact movement, with people coming to early morning eateries for their breakfast. But on your screens, as you can see, the tawa lies absolutely empty. क्या परिस्थिति बनी हुई हम देख रहे हैं, आपका एक सिलेंडर कनेक्टेड है पर कोई ना पराठा है ना कुछ अभी आप पका रहे हैं।
गैस नहीं मिल रही है, 3,000 तक का सिलेंडर नहीं मिल रहा है, क्या करें?
3,000 तक सिलेंडर,
1,000 सिलेंडर आ रहा था, 3,000 सिलेंडर मिल रहा है, क्या करेंगे? लेके क्या वो भी नहीं मिल रहा, वो उपलब्ध नहीं है सिलेंडर, क्या करेंगे?
3,000 क्या ब्लैक मार्केट की?
हाँ, ब्लैक मार्केट है। पहले 1,000 का रहा था, 3,000 में भी सिलेंडर नहीं है, मिल रहे। दुकान बंद कर दी, क्या करा जाए? कुछ है नहीं।
Only restricted items are currently being prepared. Chola bhaturas and other items have been taken off the menu, and in fact, managers are also apprehensive about how they'd have to send their staff back home if the cylinder, in fact, is not back in stock in due time.
The shortage of LPG cylinders has led to shutting down of lots of restaurants in Mumbai city. Because of the war situation in Middle East, we are seeing its direct impact on the hotel industry in Mumbai city. Till yesterday, 20% restaurants had already shut down. And let us show you the ground reality. We are currently in Matunga, outside Ramashray. This is one of the big chains of South Indian restaurants in Mumbai. And at this very location, often we see long queues, but now since the service is delayed, we are seeing very less people walking around the place, and even Ramashray is struggling with getting access to the LPG cylinder, since the commercial LPG is currently not being supplied, and which is why people are coming up with different solutions. With many restaurants, almost 20% restaurants have already shut down till yesterday. We are now seeing a major impact on the hotel industry because of the shortage of LPG.
मैडम, हम लोग का दिक्कत यही है कि हम लोग एक सिलेंडर नहीं मिल रहा, ठीक है। जो हम लोग के पास जो सिलेंडर था हम लोग यूज कर चुका हूँ, वो तो ख़त्म हो चुका है। हम लोग का एक रामासर होटल करके लाल बाग में है, हम लोग वहाँ पे पाइपलाइन का गैस है, वहाँ से हम लोग सब आइटम बनवा के अपना ये होटल में, एक सामने एक और होटल है, उधर दोनों होटल में बनवा के ला रहा हूँ, और हम लोग दोनों होटल में उपयोग कर रहा हूँ वहाँ से बनवा के, ठीक है। और कल हम लोग एक इलेक्ट्रिक का चूल्हा खरीद के लाया, उसमें हम लोग स्टाफ के लिए चावल वगैरह खाने के लिए बनवा रहा हूँ, और जो बाकी आइटम बनता है उसके ऊपर अपना कस्टमर के लिए वो बनवा के हम लोग उपयोग कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है। बाकी वही है।
We've been reporting continuously about how the disruptions in commercial LPG cylinder supply is affecting many hotels in Chennai. In fact, right now we are standing inside the kitchen of a hotel called Hotel Crescent in Nungambakam area of Chennai. We are given to understand through the owners of this hotel that overnight they've constructed these firewood stoves. So this construction has happened overnight, and the cement is in fact not even properly set, it is just drying. This hotel requires 4 to 5 LPG cylinders every day for normal operations, but because they were not able to secure new LPG cylinders, now they've resorted to this method, and from this afternoon they'll be cooking their food using firewood stoves.
वो मंडे हमारा डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर कमर्शियल गैस सिलेंडर आज से सप्लाई नहीं होता है करके हमारे को मैसेज दिया। हमारे को शॉक हो गया। ये जो हमारा पेट्रोलियम मिनिस्टर बोल रहे 60 दिन को हमारा पास स्टॉक है, हमारा पास हम दे सकते हैं करके हमारा पेट्रोलियम मिनिस्टर का एक ट्वीट है। ये जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर लोग है ना कमर्शियल सिलेंडर सप्लाई नहीं दे रहे। अभी जो सडनली ऐसा बोल दिया तो हम होटल कैसा चलाना है।
The situation remains far worse in countries like Pakistan, which has resorted to rationing, introduced work from home rules, and the prices of LPG in Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Nepal have also spiked significantly. But how long will this war last? That remains wholly unclear. Iran does not appear to be in a position to be backing down.
Do you envision any role for India in the de-escalation? Because India is feeling the impact, including a naval ship of Iran really being torpedoed very close to its own shores.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, India is a state that envisions itself as a major power. It envisions itself as a state that has a right to a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. It needs to, in that regard, act as such a state, use its leverage to defend its own interest and the interest of the global community, because the interest of the entire global community is for this war to end. It's only the United States, Israel, and to a certain extent Iran that wants to keep this fight going. But absent that pressure from the global community, from energy markets and the American public, we're not going to see a shift. But if everyone is just thinking that someone else will do that pressure or someone else will step up, then I don't think it will happen at all.
Mr. Jeffrey Sachs, why do you say India will be devastated? India has been saying that it's been making arrangements. It has reserves up to about 50 days. It has prioritized supply of LPG for home use.
Well, just India is extremely vulnerable to a prolonged disruption of energy from the Middle East. I'm happy to hear, and I hope it's the case, that there are large reserves. But India is a major oil and gas importer, and this is a major disruption in the world that could get worse. And unfortunately, it's being caused entirely by India's supposed friends, which are not friends at all, in my opinion.
What do you think are India's options? It has spoken of diversifying its sources of supply and also buying oil from Russia is back on the table. It has entered into agreements with Canada as well.
Well, it's certainly feasible. This is a market that adjusts quite quickly in terms of physical flows. But if the amount of physical supply is reduced 10 or 20%, it means that the price will soar. So India will be able to diversify physical supplies, but it won't solve the problem about the cost of those supplies, which will be very, very high and very detrimental for the average Indian household and for the economy as a whole.
India co-sponsored a UNSC statement that has condemned Iran for its attacks on civic infrastructure, including energy installations, especially in the GCC states as well as Jordan. However, at the same time, there have been at least 4 telephone calls involving Dr. S. Jaishankar, our foreign minister, with his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also spoke to Iranian President Mahmoud Pezeshkian on the 12th of March. The situation remains volatile in the Middle East, and India's calls for immediate de-escalation have plenty to do with energy security and, of course, the lives of Indian nationals living in that part of the world.